air filtration and water filtration. And then in 1993, with a divine connection between the Juice Plus crew and Dr. Smokey Centillo, new Juice Plus was born. And we're grateful for Juice Plus. It's just simple food, real food that does a body good. I don't want to belabor it, so I'm going to turn it over to my friend, Coach Carla, the transformation coach.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that everyone is here. And um, it's Friday night. So this is Doctor's Orders. And for Doctor's Orders, we usually talk about some sort of health concern. We're in a series, and tonight we're going to talk about cancer. I know that this can be a very touchy subject for many people, and I have to admit, it is also a subject of concern to me. I don't know if you've heard my story before, but whether or not you have, I'll tell you a little bit about it today, and hopefully we can learn some things that can make this information session a blessing for you and for your loved ones. Um, I'm Coach Carla Joy. I'm really glad to be able to speak with you this evening. And I hope that at some point, if you'll just jot down some questions, if you have questions, please put a Q in the chat and type out your question so that we can have a question and answer session as well. There's a lot of information that I have to share with you today. And so I'm going to speak quickly and go through the slides quickly. And I want you to know that my heart, my love goes out to you if you or someone you know is experiencing a diagnosis of cancer. Um, so why is this so significant? You know, 100 years ago, I don't think we had as many occurrences of cancer, but now all over the country, there are famous cancer centers. There's probably a famous cancer center, if not in your city, definitely in your state. And the image that I just brought up was the first cancer ward in the United States, in New York. It was opposite Central Park, and you notice that some of the sections of the building were round, and this is a view inside on the cancer ward. And maybe that's where they had that term, doctors making their rounds. So why is this such a big issue for us? As you can see from this data, heart disease is the number one cause of death, followed by cancer in this country. So even though the information that I'm sharing with you today, I hope that you'll see it as a source of information. Please do not make any changes to your plans, to your medications, to your prescribed medical journey without having discussions with your physician, because we're just trying to give you information and hope and encouragement. So, um, what are some of the things that we do know about cancer cells? These are cells that are part of our own bodies, but they've suddenly stopped doing what they should do. They ignore the normal signals, and they don't stop that tell cells to stop dividing. They avoid the normal death process called apoptosis, and they trigger an increase of blood flow to themselves, a process called angiogenesis. And they're able to hide or ride on the immune system. The research is ongoing, whether the cancer cells are hiding from the immune system or whether they're actually hijacking immune system cells and getting a ride from one place to another. And that is the one of the cardinal indicators of cancer, is this ability to start in one area and then travel to another area and set up home a process called metastasis. There are different types of cancers. You can name them based on the part of the body where they occur: elbow cancer, neck cancer, or they can be examined by medical professionals and pathologists, and they can see where did these cells originate? Did they originate in a different part of the body or in a different tissue? So they're very different names and locations. What can, where does this come from? Where does cancer come from? Well, we've discovered over the years, the researchers tell us that exposure to radiation can trigger cancer. Exposure to certain chemicals can also trigger cancer, and exposure to certain viruses. They actually have found that the presence of certain viruses is associated with an increased risk of cancers. But what they've also found is that viruses only account for about 15% of the cancers that they've been able to identify. So, what about inflammation? Well, inflammation is associated with cancer, and prolonged exposure to radiation or chemicals or viruses is also associated. Now, there is a lot of research going on about the ability of radiation, chemicals, viruses to switch on what's called oncogenes, cancer causing or cancer related genes, and switch off tumor suppressor genes. So on our DNA, they have located areas that they feel are controllers that control the switching on of cancer or the switching off of cancer. And it seems as though there are things that can attack these genes and change their function. But what they've discovered is only less than 10% of the cancers. So we're looking at less than quarter of the cancers really we're able to identify that they're caused by viruses or genetics. So what's at the heart of this? I won't go in deeply into the biochemistry, but there are chemicals that are produced in our body, just in the natural metabolism. They're called reactive oxygen species. And when these reactive oxygen species aren't neutralized, or they're often referred to as free radicals as well, they create damage to the actual components of the cells. So these reactive oxygen species can be associated with air pollution, damage to our organelles inside of the cells, from to smoking, to radiation, to excessive exposure to the sun, and also to inflammation. And what the research is showing is that although cancer cells do have genetic damage, it's not predictable. So that you may find researchers talking about a particular cancer, and they have a long string of genetic components that might be associated with that cancer. It's not predictable, it's not uniform, and it's not consistently diagnostic. So it can be any of those, but it's not consistent. But damage to the energy metabolism, the little tiny organelles inside of our cells called mitochondria, or the energy units of our cells, energy factories of our cells, they are consistently damaged in cancer cells. And there's increased fermentation and increased inflammation. The work of Otto Warburg stands as a pivotal point in our understanding of how cancer is generated. So Dr. Thomas Seyfried, he has a whole talk on the origin of cancer and how these reactive oxygen species damage the mitochondria. And this is a lot more predictive, a lot more reliable in showing us, wait a minute, once the metabolism of the cells is damaged, these cells are cancerous. Now, Dr. Dean Ornish is responsible for this image or one similar to it. As you look at that image, you see hardworking medical professionals cleaning up a flood. So there are things that we can do to help our medical situation. And the medical situation that we're talking about right now is cancer. And cancer is treated, usually there's some sort of biopsy to confirm that the cells are cancerous. One of the treatments is surgery, another is chemotherapy or immunotherapy, and another one is radiation. Now, I just told you that radiation and exposure to certain chemicals can cause cancer. And yet, very often, a medical professional uses these same procedures in an attempt to treat cancer. Now, keep in mind that the medical professionals are trying to reverse the signs and symptoms. They're trying to reduce the size of the tumor. They're trying to get rid of the cancer cells. But there's something I want you to keep in mind. When you look at this image, you see the doctors working very hard to clean up the mess. But is there something else that we could do? There's something called prevention. And here in this case, if we turn off the faucet, there's a great probability that their work will be much more effective. So what is it that we can do? I mentioned the word prevention. What could we do? We could avoid things like smoking, the chemicals produced by smoking, and now a lot of people are vaping. We don't have data. This trend of vaping has not been around long enough for us to get enough data to indicate whether vaping increases the risk, the occurrence, the severity of cancers. But that's similar to the way it was with smoking. Smoking was popular for more than 20 years before they collected enough data to indicate that when people started smoking, there was an increase in lung cancer and different types of cancer, not just lung cancer. So just avoiding smoking of any kind might be beneficial. Reducing radiation exposure. Now, if you have a broken limb, then you would want, as part of the workup, as part of your doctor's treatment for you, they may have to give you an X-ray. Well, that's exposure to radiation. If you have to have your teeth fixed, that's exposure to radiation. Well, those are medically advisable situations. But other than that, we want to avoid exposure to radiation. We want as much as possible to avoid exposure to pollution, and we want to reduce inflammation. Now, I wish I could say we could get rid of inflammation, but there's something you need to know about inflammation. Inflammation is a natural healing process. When you get injured, if I were to take an object and hit my hand with it, I hard enough, my body would respond with inflammation. It would get red, it would get hot, it would get swollen, the blood supply would increase, there would be pain, and there could also be loss of function. These are classic indicators of acute inflammation. So inflammation, acute inflammation, is our body's healing response to some form of injury, whether it's an external injury or it's an injury going on inside of our bodies. But that response is supposed to come and then go. If, however, the injury is ongoing, the problems are ongoing, then the inflammation becomes chronic. And it's chronic inflammation. Think of it like the sparks. When you light a fire, there's sparks that come off. And remember, I told you about the reactive oxygen species. Well, those sparks, they can cause fire. Well, these in our metabolism, these sparks, if not neutralized, can cause chronic inflammation. And the researchers tell us that over 70% of the diseases in the United States are connected with chronic inflammation. So we're talking today about cancer, but you'll know from this graphic that cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's disease, pulmonary disease, arthritis, autoimmune diseases, neurological diseases, and diabetes are also connected with increased chronic inflammation in the body. So, what do we do? Did you know that whole foods are anti inflammatory? If you knew that whole foods were anti inflammatory, put a 1 in the chat for me. Thank you. Well, when we're talking about whole foods, what are we really talking about? We're talking about whole foods that are as as much as possible in their natural state. Now, I've never seen anybody just pick rice out of the field and just start eating it. So some processing is required. However, we're thinking about minimally processed things. 90% of your calories coming from plant material. That is fruits. This graphic shows it here. Fruits, vegetables, whether you're talking about green leafy vegetables that grow above ground or root vegetables, starchy vegetables that grow below the ground. We're talking about grains of different types. That's rice and oats and barley and corn and also legumes. That's a fancy word for peas and beans. So 90% of our calories should come from fruits, vegetables, grains, peas, and beans. That would give us a eating plan that is high in fiber, low in fat, does not contain any dairy, and water is our main drink. Speaking of which, I think I'm going to take a sip or two. Would you join me? Now, if this is the first time that you're hearing about whole food, plant strong eating, please put a 2 in the chat. Thank you. So the question often comes up, what about screening and early detection? I heard you talking about prevention, but what about screening and early detection? We have had mammograms, PSA testing, colonoscopy, and pap smears for a very long time. And I'm sad to tell you that the only test that has functioned effectively as a screening test, and how do we know it's effective? Well, it reduces the rate or the occurrence of this disease, or it reduces the risk of the disease, or it reduces the number of deaths from the disease. And the only one is the pap smear. Increased mammograms, increased PSA, increased colonoscopies, as using them as screening tools, saying everybody needs to have them to be screened, has not made a dent in breast cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer. Now, they are good diagnostic tools. Once there are signs and symptoms of breast cancer, colon cancer, prostate cancer, then these tools become more effective in the process of diagnosing. But as large scale population screening tools, they have not been effective. However, changing your lifestyle can impact your outcomes. I hope to get trained by the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, and they have enough evidence over the 50 years to show that's one of the things that we can do. If someone could please mute their microphone. If your microphone is on, then if you could mute it, that would be helpful. Changing your lifestyle could impact the risk that you may have for getting a type of cancer. It can impact the severity, it can impact the outcome for you. Now, this is a list of some of my mentors, some of the men and women who have in the past 50 years been working and producing quality research that indicates that what I've been sharing and what I'm going to share with you is actually accurate, that lifestyle changes can impact our risk, can impact the severity, can impact the outcomes of cancer in our country. Now, here's some information from Dr. T. Colin Campbell, one of my mentors, and he is showing that when we look across the world, the countries that have the highest intake of fat actually have the highest breast cancer mortality. And this is us up here, high fat intake, high dietary fat. Now, what is low fat? Low fat means when you look at a label and it says less than 3 grams of fat per serving, that's considered low fat. Um, Between Dr. T. Colin Campbell, Dr. Neil Barnard, and some others, we have data that indicates that increased animal protein intake has a significant impact on the number of breast cancer cases. Again, this is the United States up in the top right-hand corner. There's evidence connecting milk and prostate cancer. When you look at milk consumption, the increase in milk consumption goes up the further. And here's the United States. Also, what another diagram indicating that, and this is from the work of Dr. T. Colin Campbell, when animals are exposed to milk proteins, whether it's casein or whey, when they're exposed to the milk protein, and that becomes more than 10% of their caloric intake for protein, that cancer begins to grow. So we have direct evidence indicating that we can reduce our cancer risk, we could reduce our cancer exposure if we can reduce the amount of dairy products, reduce the amount of fat. Dr. Walter Longo from the Longevity Institute says people need to switch to a diet where only around 9 or 10% of their calories come from protein. Now, this is contrary to what we have been taught for nearly 50 years. But for the past 50 years, the word has been getting out. We do not need as much protein. When we have a diet or an eating plan, if you look at the diagram on the left, where our protein is more than 10% of our calories, then our increase in cancer occurs. And when it is, and the recommended dietary allowance for protein is and has been for nearly 100 years, 10%. And yet advertising has told us that we need more and more and more and more. And yes, at different phases of our lives, we may need more protein. Lactating mothers, growing children, senior citizens. But the amount of protein that we're eating, if it's a lot more than 10% of our calories, we are putting ourselves in danger. And something that a lot of people didn't know, our body doesn't store the excess protein. Our kidneys have to get rid of it. And so we are putting extra weight, extra work on our kidneys. We're not storing the protein. In fact, a lot of it is stored as fat. And that's something that we don't want. Now, by the way, there are plant-based sources of protein. Anything that's growing, anything that's plants also has protein. Now, I do want to share with you, what is it about animal products and why are they linked to breast, rectal, stomach cancers, colon cancers? It's because, number one, animal products do not have any fiber. Fiber and antioxidants and phytochemicals, they're not in animal products. The animal absorbed all of those things and used it for living. And so when we eat the meat, there's no fiber, there are no antioxidants. Also, high quantities of animal products trigger growth hormones. And many animals are given growth hormones. So in that meat, there is a lot of the residue from growth hormones. And excess growth hormones like insulin, like growth factor 1, is associated with an increased cancer risk. Also, the animal products, when we throw them on a hot skillet or hot grill, think a particular 4th of a month holiday, that actual heating up of the animal products to such high heats produces toxic carcinogenic compounds. They're called heterocyclic amines and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, but they are really very toxic. And if we are eating these highly cooked meats over an extended period of time, we are increasing our risk. And of course, the animal products are high in fat. A lot of people remove fat from outside of the animal flesh, but the actual animal flesh itself is high in fat. I mean, when you put it on the grill, what comes out of it? Fat. And so the excess fat in the animal products, whether we try to cook it out or whether we eat it, we boil it or put it in an air fryer, it's still high in fat and increases the risk for hormone related cancers. So, what can we do? The research shows that women who ate the most fiber actually lowered their risk of breast cancer. And the um, um, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine shows that if you eat from fruits, vegetables, grains, peas, and beans, and you ate the majority of what you ate, 90% of what you ate came from these food groups, you would be able to get your fiber requirements and you won't have to count. I mean, you just have a cup of peas, a bowl of broccoli, a bowl of fruit, some, whether it is spaghetti or barley or oatmeal, you put them all together or you eat them during the day and you'll get your 40 grams of fiber. Now, I also want to show you something that was mind-blowing for me. At the University of Texas, MD Anderson Cancer Center, they did research with people who were women who were asked to eat 10 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. How many would agree that that's a lot of work? Put a 3 in the chat. If someone asked you every day to eat 10 servings of fruits and vegetables, and you think that that's a lot, put a 3 in the chat. So these women were asked to do 10 servings a day. And then another group was asked to do 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, but also to eat concentrated fruits and vegetables in capsules, along with a plant-based protein and vegetable shake. The results speak for themselves. Those who ate the 10 vegetables that they prepared, there were about 24 of them, the 5-year survival, 92% of them, and the recurrence-free rate was 60%. Those who ate the 5 servings of fruits and vegetables, plus the concentrated fruits and vegetables in capsules, and the vegetable and plant protein shake, there were about 27 of them. 92% 0.6 survival, very similar, 5-year, but the recurrence-free rate was 70%. That is statistically significant. And when you look at asking someone to eat 5 to 10 servings of fruits and vegetables a year, that itself increased their 5-year survival, because the expected 5-year survival for ovarian cancer patients was originally 35 to 57%. So that's huge, just that one simple change. And you may be asking, okay, I get it, but is that all I can do? No, there's more. I like to call these the 6 pillars of health. You can move, How many of you love exercise? Put a 4 in the chat if you love exercise. And put a 5 in the chat if you love to sleep 7 to 8 hours a day. So getting more exercise and more, just walking leisurely for half an hour every day can make a huge difference, especially if you 5 or 6 times a week, just walk for half an hour in a leisurely way. You may say, well, it's not convenient because it's either too hot, 100 plus, or it's either or too cold, below 32 degrees. But you can walk around your living room for half an hour if you have stairs and you're not compromised in any way or not don't have any restrictions, you can walk up and down the stairs. You also need to manage your stress because the researchers have found that a stressed body is an environment that raises the risk for cancer. So whether it's through prayer, through meditation, through being part of a community, in fact, the American College for Lifestyle Medicine lists being part of a supportive and encouraging community as one of their pillars of health. That is going to make a significant difference for you. You may have to make some choices. You may have to make some friendship choices. If some people stress you out, you may have to limit the amount of time you spend with them. Drinking water. Now, many people have weighed in on how much water. There's even a guy on YouTube saying you don't need water. Well, I don't know about you, but I know that we do. In fact, if you are feeling thirsty, as I am now, you're already dehydrated and you need to get water. Some people say, just drink enough water so that your urine runs clear. But, a lot of us don't go to the bathroom for, that often to check. So here's a recommendation. Drink 8 glasses of water as a minimum. And I know some of us are starting behind that, but use it to get started. Safer products in your house. I told you that we need to stay away from pollution, but do you know that we're polluting our own environment? Did you know that some of the things that we spray around our house to make it smell beautiful or to help to clean it, the fumes, when they are inhaled in our body, can become toxic? Have you ever looked at the back of your cleaning supplies and they say, warning label, don't ingest it and don't use it in an enclosed environment? I don't know about you, but many of us, our homes are enclosed environments. So we really need to take a look at using safer products. And if you would like more information about that, speak to the person who invited you, and we'll be happy to give you more information. And of course, the biggest, most effective pillar of health is eating real food, changing how we eat. As I told you, those women who were exposed to eating more fruits and vegetables increased their survival rate. And again, 90% of your calories coming from fruits, vegetables, grains, peas and beans, no dairy, low fat, and water is your main drink. And experts may have different perspectives on how much animal products we should eat and when we should eat, but they all agree that we need to eat more fruits and vegetables. In fact, there's a gap between what many of us are eating and what some of us even know and what the researchers say that we should be. And if you're eating like I was on the left, and you want to eat like I've been talking about today, then we have to help you. We're here to help you. Now, some people say, well, can't I just eat vitamins? Well, vitamins is, according to Dr. Mitra Ray, like old black and white TV, old technology. How many people even own a black and white TV? If you do, please put a 10 in the chat. I'd like to know more about that. But most of us have upgraded to a modern technology. But it's not just about preferences. It's actually about what is healthy and what is not. Researchers have found that using isolated, concentrated micronutrients that we call vitamins, there might be 10, 12, 15 in your vitamin pill, they are not as effective as we once thought. In fact, they're copycats of what's in nature. And what the research has shown is that there's something called synergy. These micronutrients, they are only a few of the tens of thousands of micronutrients that are in, for example, the apple. And those micronutrients work together. One example, vitamin C. A vitamin C pill of 500 milligrams was compared with the 5 milligrams found in an average apple. And they found that the apple had more vitamin C activity than the 500 milligram tablet. And that's because there are other chemicals, there are other phytonutrients in the apple, the orange, the different fruits and vegetables. We call them phytonutrients that work together to help promote health. Now, I told you we're here to help you bridge the gap. And so, for just a moment, if I may, I'd like to introduce you to something called Juice Plus. It is basically fruits, vegetables that have been grown in pristine conditions. They've been left to ripen to their fullest. And when they're picked, they're as soon as possible, they're flash frozen, concentrated into powders and placed in plant-based capsules. Now, this is food. It's not a multivitamin. It has a food label. It's made with non-GMO ingredients. It's vegan, kosher, and it's also dairy and gluten-free. Now, we have an outside agency, NSF, coming in and batch testing the fruits and vegetables in the capsules. There are no banned substances, no questionable substances, and what's on the label, which is a food label, is actually in the capsules. It is the most researched nutritional product. As I said, it's 30 fruits, vegetables, and berries. And we also have access to omegas. Dr. Brooke Goldner, who um, has recovered from lupus through adding fruits and vegetables to her eating plan, has a wonderful lecture that explains about inflammatory omegas and anti-inflammatory omegas. But many people get these omegas from fish. Did you know that fish don't produce them? They actually get them from the algae. So we bypassed the middle fish, went straight to the algae and 5 other plant sources of naturally occurring omega fats. And we've put them all together so that you can have that range, that nature supplied range of omega 3, 5, 6, 7, and 9, all in one place in a plant based capsule. And the research shows that it is helpful for our heart, brain, joints, skin, and eyes. And the reason I'm sharing this is because we've seen that adding more fruits and vegetables is going to give us, one person calls it a nutritional seatbelt. You know, you and I have to be careful when we get out on the road. Look left, look right, be patient, to use our turn signals, follow the rules. But we can't control if we're going to get into an accident. But what we can do is put on our seatbelt so that if we do get into an accident, we have the best possible outcomes. So that's what we see at Juice Plus as. It bridges the gap between where you are and where you need to be. And it acts like a nutritional seatbelt to help your body be prepared in case there is some exposure to radiation or any of the other causes of cancer. We also have a complete shake. It's a protein plus vegetable shake with broccoli sprouts, radish sprouts, quinoa, amaranth, rice protein, mushrooms, Dr. Um, so you can have what I call fast food on the go, because this in a plant-based milk or water can give you some nourishment, and it is has a low glycemic index, so that even persons who are diabetic don't have to be worried about peaks and troughs, because the fruits and vegetables are bound up with the fiber. We also have the um, newest shake, the Juice Plus Perform, which has a little more protein, but the research shows it's good for muscle growth, energy, production, mental performance, bone health, muscle recovery. So if you're athletic, then that might be for you. And all of us are concerned about where we're getting our food. And so we also have an opportunity for you to grow your own food with our tower gardens. Please and ask the person who invited you. They can tell you more. And if this is you, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, exhausted, we also have a pick me up for you that is plant based. It does contain the whole coffee bean and certain other mushrooms and herbs to help keep you focused and alert, but not jittery. It's really amazing, and you can get a sample from a friend of yours. Now, all of this information I've given you, I hope that you see that number one, you can work to reduce your risk from cancer by changing your lifestyle. We've talked about the 6 pillars of health. You can work to have a bridge the gap between what you're eating and what you need to eat. And you can have that seat belt, that nutritional seat belt. Now, I want you to know that around the world, there are locations called blue zones where the incidence of cancer and other degenerative diseases is very, very low. And look at the book Blue Zones by Dan Buettner, and you'll see that some of the things that they do are included in the 6 pillars of health. They eat whole food and mainly plant based. They don't exclude animal products, but mainly plant based. And there's work by Dr. Kelly Turner. She worked with cancer survivors who experienced a process called remission. And she found that they had strong reasons for living, embraced social support, released suppressed emotion, used herbs and supplements, followed their intuition, radically changed their diet. So there is hope. I remind you of the 6 pillars of health. And if you are serious, if you are ready to put on your own nutritional seatbelt and to support and encourage those you know who may already have a cancer diagnosis, I want to encourage you to put your email in the chat so that Charlotte can collect it for you. And I will send you an email that I sent to all the people that I know that are dealing with cancers. There are several different resources available. You get to choose which ones you look into and rely on, but at least you can have this as a tool. It is free. I'd be happy to send it to you. Please just put your email in the chat, and Charlotte will make sure that I get that list, and she'll remind me to send it to you. We also have a free 5-day health transformation challenge where I will talk with you a little bit about the Moss report and give you some ideas of things we can do to jumpstart our journey to abiding health. We have health ambassador opportunities, and please just take a picture, a screenshot. I invite you to join my Facebook page, Journey to Abiding Health. But I'd like to ask you a question as we come to a close of our time together. What do you have to lose, and what do you have to gain? There's a possibility that you could reduce your risk of heart disease, cancer, diabetes, mental decline, autoimmune diseases. You can gain healthy skin, nails. You can slow the aging process, increase your vitality, live pain-free days, actually restore your health. I don't have time today to go into the work of Caldwell Esselstyn, the research of T. Colin Campbell, the work of Dr. John McDougall, the late, great Dr. John McDougall, God bless him, and Dr. Neil Barnard, and others Dean Ornish. There are many others who can help you. We can have hope. And guess what? It's not just for cancer, because the common thread for all of these conditions is chronic inflammation. Now, chronic inflammation may not have caused it, but if we can reverse that inflammation, if we can reverse the chronic inflammation, we have seen the data is there to indicate that not only do people get better, not only do they do better, but the risk of getting disease goes down. So if you're ready to get started, we're more than happy to help you. The person who invited you would love to talk with you about our upcoming Jumpstart program. We have a 10-day Jumpstart called Shred 10. You get guidelines, group coaching, free e-resources, cookbooks, support, and fun. It's done. We do it the first Monday of every month. So August, we're starting on August the 5th. Please put August 5 in the chat if you're interested in joining our Shred 10. We have 10 guidelines. We'll be happy to send you the list of guidelines and information about how you can get started. What do you do for the shred? We can do all of that. And you can mix and match how you get started. Once again, these are your options. Um, the cancer support email is free to everybody. The 5-day health transformation challenge is free for everybody. We have some health ambassador opportunities, $10 for the year, and a free Facebook group as well. So I hope that our time together has been helpful for you, and that you have hope, that you beginning to see that although cancer is a serious disease, although knowing someone who has been diagnosed with cancer can be, yeah, let's say frightening, there is hope. My mother and her father both died in the same year of gender specific cancers when I was 12 years old. So I have been afraid of cancer for most of my life until I heard that nutrition could impact nutrition, and the other six of the six pillars of health could impact my risk. I mean, I thought I had won the bad genes lottery. Relatives who died of cancer, relatives who died of heart disease, relatives who died of complications of autoimmune conditions. And when I found out that there's a solution, there's a way that we can protect ourselves with a nutritional seatbelt, with lifestyle changes, I started applying them to myself. I've outlived my mother, my grandfather, my father, and in terms of the number of years they've lived, and in terms of the disease process. I had a diagnosis that was frightening: high blood pressure, high cholesterol, prediabetes. It meant that my genes were catching up with me. But after changing my lifestyle, after adding concentrated fruits and vegetables to help bridge the gap, to help me along the way, my doctor gave me a clean bill of health. Now, we don't know. I mean, nobody stays on the planet forever. We all leave here. And I don't know what was going on in my body before I made the changes. But I do know that there's something I could do, something I could do, and I have been doing. And many of my friends, dear friends, right here on listening to this podcast, whose lives have been transformed. Yes, it's a challenge, but we take it one simple change at a time, and you can do it. You can have hope, hope for yourself, hope for your loved ones. Let's do this together. I want to thank you so much for listening in to Doctor's Orders. We're here every Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And here is where we say, all together, guys.
Eat
Eat
more
more
fruit
fruits
and
and
veggies.
vegetables.
That's right. I'm going to stop the recording and hopefully you'll join us again. I also have to, we also have to all leave and then come back if you have questions, because the YouTube version is still going and it's going to keep going until, if we don't all jump off.
Oh, you can't stop it?
I haven't found a way yet. So
Okay.
come on right back.